Deng Xiaoping and Mikhail Gorbachev declare normalization, while outside the Great Hall of the People, the mass nonviolent protest for Chinese democracy grows larger and more desperate.
This is the CBS Evening News. Dan Rattle reporting from Tiananmen Square in Beijing. Good evening. It is Wednesday morning in China. As the sun rose here, it was clear that the Chinese students' protest for democracy is still gaining strength and urgency. After 4 days on hunger strike in this exposed, windswept area, students are dropping from exhaustion. Some now are vowing to die if necessary. Their supporters, teachers, professionals, and workers, are appealing in increasingly emotional tones to the communist leaders at the summit. The government says it has responded. Early this morning, in the middle of the night, really, Beijing time, a message is reported to have been delivered from the Communist Party chief promising, and I quote, to work out concrete measures to enhance democracy and law. According to the state news agency, he also promised the government would not punish the students later. That is according to the official state news agency, but we've been out among the students all night and into early this morning. The students and their leaders don't seem to know anything about that. This continues to be a strange and fascinating summit.
The planned high point of the summit took place today inside the Great Hall of the People. Gorbachev got what he came for, a handshake with Deng Xiaoping. No bear hug, just a handshake. Deng is the architect of economic reforms Gorbachev envies and has been unable to duplicate in Russia. But Deng is now 84 and fading, a symbol of the past and not enough change to protesters outside in the square. Deng and Gorbachev ignored the protesters, who surged right up to the steps of the Great Hall at the same time the men were meeting inside. Give us water, they shouted, meaning, give us a sign that you care. No such sign came. Nearby, a dozen students were refusing to take either food or water. At least one of them was hospitalized during the day, along with others spelled by the combination of exhaustion, hunger, and a pounding sun. By the time we went back into Tiananmen Square in late afternoon, there was a constant stream of victims being carried to the hospital.
In the middle of all of this is the hospital tent, which handles the worst cases. Now, what they're trying to do is keep the number of hunger strikers at 3,000, saying they can't support any more than that. Every time one of them is carried away, then he's replaced by somebody else. Part of what they're trying to do is take care of the hunger strikers in places such as this when it's necessary, and to hold the number of hunger strikers at 3,000.
Into this charged setting walked a member of the Communist Party Central Committee. A dramatic scene ensued. I understand all of your demands, he said. I have sent them to the government, but give us time. A girl in the back of the crowd called back, there is no time, sir. People are dying. You have no right to kill yourselves, he replied. Then one of the original leaders of the student strike, Wu Kaishi, rose to speak with an intravenous tube in his nose. I personally believe the minister, he said, but I beg you students to stand with me. Trust me. Don't give up. Despite the increasingly desperate mood, support keeps building for the strike. The crowd swelled today with workers, some professionals, with parents, children, and teachers looking for their students.
This is interesting because the workers are beginning to be visible in and around Tiananmen Square. The students early on were saying, we have the support of the workers, but we don't necessarily want to show that card to the government. We don't feel it's necessary. But today, some of the workers are beginning to come out. And that sign back there with the red star on it, workers of the China National Airlines. Just below that, there's a black sign that says, workers support the student hunger strike. The nation cannot sleep.
At the end of the day, the strike was holding, indeed still building, as students began arriving from other cities. Worry deepened for government and Communist Party leaders. Publicly, they held to the line, protesters should just go home. But once again, the protest had to summit on the run. Gorbachev's meeting with Premier Li Peng was moved from the Great Hall of the People to a guest house in another part of Beijing. The Gorbachevs did get out of their car to greet people in other parts of town, much as they did in Washington not long ago. Raisa Gorbachev did make the usual rounds of cultural institutions, wooing crowds the way she has on every big trip. But this wasn't every other trip. This was a day when the turbulence in downtown Beijing overshadowed the summit, a day when the students set the agenda.
Late last night, a Soviet spokesman quoted Gorbachev as telling Chinese party leader Zhao Ziyang that both their countries have hotheads, Gorbachev's word, hotheads, who want to change the course of socialism overnight. In a moment, I'll be back with the rest of the day's news, and then...
We continue our special series of reports on two communist giants amid a revolution in the communist world. Gorbachev, China, and the new face of communism.
While his attentions are centered on China for the moment, Gorbachev remains active on other fronts. He's making moves in Central America. He now claims to have stopped sending arms to Nicaragua. President Bush's spokesman called it another Gorbachev PR game. More about this from White House correspondent Leslie Stahl in Washington.
Rather than welcoming Gorbachev's private pledge that he has halted weapons shipments to Nicaragua, the White House sharply attacked the Soviet leader's credibility, accusing him of acting like, quote, a drugstore cowboy. Spokesman Marlon Fitzwater said, "We don't see any evidence of any cutoff. We're very leery of their intentions. We see a very strong pattern of public relations gambits." And the Pentagon today estimated that the Soviet bloc has already supplied Nicaragua with $80 million worth of military goods so far this year, leaving a stockpile of
150 tanks, 237 armored vehicles, 549 surface-to-air missile launchers, 772 air defense guns.
But on Capitol Hill, the president was criticized for his, quote, cavalier response.
If you respond to it, as I say, by sort of laughing at it, treating it as though it's totally untrue, that it's just one-upmanship and that's all, then we miss potentially a great opportunity in this region.
Last December, the commander of Nicaragua's army told CBS News that a Soviet military cutoff would have little effect.
We don't need additional big amounts.
And Contra leaders warn that ending Soviet shipments won't shut down the pipeline.
The Cubans and other Soviet bloc countries would have to go along with it because Sandinistas have gotten weapons and ammunition from them.
The verbal attack on Gorbachev is a sign of growing frustration here. Already on the defensive, Mr. Bush is under rising pressure to counter Gorbachev's recent wave of arms control initiatives. Leslie Stahl, CBS News, the White House.
The Pentagon said today it will offer evacuation flights to U.S. military dependents who want to leave Panama. Both military transport planes and chartered commercial airliners will be used. In Panama, the Noriega government declared tomorrow's planned general strike there illegal, but did not say what action it would take. A car bomb today killed the spiritual leader of Lebanon's Sunni Muslims and 21 other people. The bomb was hidden in a parked car. It exploded as the motorcade of Sheikh Hassan Khalid drove through West Beirut. Khalid was a respected Muslim moderate who'd been calling for Muslim-Christian coexistence. U.S. federal investigators today opened hearings on the Exxon Valdez disaster and heard for the first time from someone who was aboard the tanker when it crashed into a reef and caused the nation's worst oil spill. John Blackstone reports.
Third mate Gregory Cousins was the crew member actually navigating the Exxon Valdez on the night it ran aground, and the person working closest with Captain Joseph Hazelwood. Cousins told investigators from the National Transportation Safety Board today he saw no evidence the captain was drunk.
Did he appear intoxicated?
No, he did not.
Cousins described following Hazelwood's instructions to navigate around small icebergs floating in the shipping lanes. When the tanker seemed clear of the ice, Cousins told the helmsman to steer back into the shipping lanes. Cousins says he became alarmed when he realized the ship was not turning as he had commanded.
I called the captain, and I said to him at that time, I think we're in serious trouble. At the end of that conversation is when I felt the initial shock to the vessel. It was like a slight roll, very unusual sensation. He knew he'd hit something. 6 of these very sharp jolts.
The mystery raised by Cousins' testimony, if he ordered a turn, why didn't it happen?
Source of trouble for me.
One possibility, the helmsman, Robert Kagan, the man actually steering the ship, was inexperienced. But Cousins may have waited too late to order the turn, or the Exxon Valdez may have been going too fast. John Blackstone, CBS News, Anchorage.
The U.S. government today reported that rising interest rates were a factor as housing starts fell 2.7% in April. That third straight monthly decline put housing construction at its lowest rate since the end of the last recession. But the report said building permits in April jumped 7.2%. Back in a moment with Charles Kuralt at the Great Wall.
At China's incredible Great Wall is my old friend and colleague, Charles Kuralt. Charles Mikhail Gorbachev sees this stunning sight for the first time tomorrow.
He'll be impressed, won't he? I guess in this world, Dan, there are a lot of monuments to the vanity of kings and the forced labor of their subjects, but this wall undoubtedly wins the prize.
Even when you see it, it's hard to conceive the immense project that this was. When the wall was built, we were told there were 40,000 watchtowers along the length of the Great Wall.
And they say that from the moon, this wall is the only work of human hands that can be seen on the Earth. It's the great construction project of the centuries, all right.
In its own way, what Deng Xiaoping is now trying to accomplish may be equally ambitious, what he calls the second revolution, behind Marxist Maoism, the reverse revolution, trying to do something with the economy. Susan Spencer traveled 1,000 miles south of here for a look at the showcase for Deng's free enterprise gamble.
From Shenzhen University, which offers a major in that most capitalistic endeavor, television advertising. To the Shenzhen Golf and Country Club, where million-dollar business deals are more common than great shots. To the sexy singers at Shenzhen's popular Maryland Disco. You have to keep reminding yourself, this is not Los Angeles. This is communist China. This is Shenzhen, just across the border from Hong Kong, one of 4 special zones set up in 1980 to experiment with reform and market economics. Result, a boom town of nearly 1 million people who watch Hong Kong TV, set their watches by Hong Kong time, and share Hong Kong values. Its young people sound more like Donald Trump than Mao Zedong.
They just pay attention to their employment, their money.
It's good to have money. You know, it makes a lot of things possible.
Lots of money. The special treatment has helped make this China's richest province. In fact, half of the country's total foreign investment is invested right here.
China Bicycles, a Schwinn joint venture, was lured to Shenzhen in 1985 by promises of tax breaks, cheap labor, and little red tape.
China is the largest bicycle market in the world. They use and build over 40 million bicycles a year. And for a guy in the bike business, that's a great thing.
A great thing as well for Shenzhen's workers, who earn up to 4 times what they could anywhere else. Most are young immigrants from the countryside, drawn by stories of the area's amazing prosperity. Rumors of their success continue to bring in thousands more, looking for work, trying to sneak onto the packed trains bound for Shenzhen. A permanent overflow now lives at the Canton Railroad Station.
They think they can get what they want. They can accomplish their dreams, their ideals, and some of them want to come and see the world.
If I hadn't come here, maybe I would have lived a totally different kind of life.
What would you be doing?
I'd be a teacher. Very strict rules and principles that you don't have so much freedom to think in your own way.
The central government generally does let freewheeling Shenzhen go its own way. Uncensored foreign films even run at the local theater. But when it comes to the economy, Beijing would like more control over its runaway experiment. What was supposed to be a model has cost the country a fortune in incentives to lure investment. The boom also has brought prostitution and gambling. Corruption is said to be rampant. Inflation is nearly 40%. With its proximity to Hong Kong, Shenzhen today is seen more as a sideshow than as an exact model for China's future. A reminder, too, that when the door is opened, it may swing wider than anyone ever expected. Susan Spencer, CBS News, Shenzhen.
Of course, that kind of prosperity in one place can cause problems in other places. After all, most Chinese get by on a few cents a day. So there's some resentment out there in the countryside about the prosperity of Shenzhen.
Indeed there is, and in a moment, we'll take a look at the poverty so pervasive in other directions from the Great Wall.
For many generations, oat bran has been a natural part of their breakfast. Part of a balance of grains and fruits and nuts. Now known as Kellogg's Mueslix. How fortunate we have rediscovered what they knew all along. Kellogg's Mueslix with oat bran. What breakfast was meant to be.
It took 2,000 years, but a revolutionary discovery is changing the way men think about coloring their gray hair. It's called Just for Men, from the leader in men's hair coloring. Simply apply Just for Men, and in 5 minutes, shampoo out. Your gray is blended away, leaving your natural-looking color. 5 minutes. Here, look at me. Just for Men leaves your hair looking healthy and fuller, and it won't fade or wash out. Just for Men, in the men's hair care section.
Is something lurking out there? New faster killing Black Flag ant and roach spray kills roaches with its exterminator proven ingredient. Don't be afraid of the light. Kill them, and kill them fast.
Just this much Cortaid heals more kinds of itches and rashes than all of these. Because Cortaid has a clinically proven healing medicine they don't have. That's why Cortaid is the itch aid.
I'm back with Charles Kuralt at the Great Wall, which was built to protect China against northern hordes. Charles, it's amazing that the ancient Mongols and Tartars were even able to get over these rugged mountains.
It is. As for the wall, of course, it never worked very well as a wall, but it made a splendid interstate highway across a large country.
And it is the size of China that's such a barrier to economic reform. That and cultural traditions bred through the centuries. Over the last decade, Deng has been telling his people what used to be heresy. Borrow what is useful from the capitalist system, he says. He says that communism, what he calls socialism, does not have to be pauperism. Bob Simon traveled deep into the interior of China and found that has yet to be proven.
In Shanxi province in northwest China, farming goes from the primitive to the more primitive to the even more primitive. Shanxi is a long way from the progressive and prosperous coastal provinces, sometimes it seems several light years away. Farmers here have to coax their crops from the inhospitable soil. But this land nurtured the Chinese Revolution. This was Mao Zedong's Valley Forge. Mao and the Red Army passed through here on the last leg of the Long March, that 3,000-mile trek which became the creation myth of Chinese communism. This is the heartland of the revolution, but it's been largely bypassed by the reforms. Many things haven't changed much here since Mao. Some things haven't changed since Marco Polo. The village of Wang, population 405, had never seen any foreigners before. They've also never seen irrigation or television or any result from the reforms other than artificially low prices for the grain they grow. In the dirt floor schoolhouse, village children map out their own literacy, limited as it will be. By the time they're 10 or 12, teachers say, their parents will pull them out to the field, to the peasantry, where they will spend the rest of their lives. Xiao Wenliang, the village's barefoot doctor, makes $5 a month. He also makes house calls. He says no one here is actually starving, but no one has enough to eat. Just corn flour, really. The chickens you hear, the pigs you see, are all sold to the city. If you go that way, along the road where Mao marched, to the cities, to the dismal, decaying cities of the heartland, you'll find a poverty of color and of space. Each city dweller is allotted 3 square yards of living space. That's the size of a dining room table. In the city of Yan'an, around the corner from where Mao slept, they're not sleeping tonight, not in Mao's make-believe ballroom, but it's a fairly joyless scene. Factory workers locked into low-paying jobs, dancing with the same people they work with and live with all their lives. A poverty of possibility. The Tangchuan coal mine was opened in 1956 to help fuel Mao's great leap forward. That didn't go very far. Neither have the lives of the miners. Have the economic reforms changed anything here? Sure they have, says the director. The men have more things now. That makes miners laugh. What things, they ask, as China's future miners look on. Any vacation during the year? Did they get any vacation? A stupid question, apparently. No vacations, they say. All we do is work. What about days off? What do they do on their days off? We're too tired to do anything, they say. We just rest in the dormitories, or to a room, a lifetime assignment. The road has gotten bogged down in places. Permanent revolution has led to permanent gridlock, stagnation. In the same caves where Mao and his comrades spent 13 years plotting a glorious future, peasants live today. On the road where Mao marched for equality, the reforms have come to mean more inequality than ever before. The road to socialism is still being built, brick by brick. In the heartland, it has not yet bypassed the centuries-old Chinese system of assigning people their roles for generations. It is so difficult for Americans even to imagine children, full of verve and song, condemned to live lives utterly devoid of opportunity, while so much is changing in so many places, so very far from here. Bob Simon, CBS News, Shanxi Province.
Dan, you know, you can still find conditions pretty much like that in parts of the Soviet Union. It's no wonder that Mikhail Gorbachev said only last year of his attempts to improve things there. Perestroika is our last chance. He said if perestroika fails, it'll be our death.
And watching the two big communist empires struggle literally for survival of their systems poses a big question for the West. For most of our lifetimes, fear of communism taking over the world has been part of what united the U.S. with Western Europe and Japan. If that fear finally abates, what then will hold the Western alliance together? Something to ponder as we examine the new face of communism. With Charles Kuralt, Dan Rather at the Great Wall. We will see you again tomorrow from China. Good night.
When my arthritis...
I'm Harry Smith.
And I'm Kathleen Sullivan. Tomorrow, Israeli Foreign Minister Moshe Aarons.
And all this week, we look at women and aging in a series Forever Young on CBS This Morning.
This is CBS.